So in this video, I'm going to talk about some of the challenges that I'm experiencing around cold email and what are the problems with some of the tools that I'm seeing out in the market and how I'm potentially going to try to solve it. This video doesn't necessarily go through sort of how I'm going to solve it. It just sort of highlights the problem and so I can level set so that once I start solving the problem, hopefully it makes a little bit more sense to you guys. But so just in general, the issue is that when you use a cold email tool, that kind of finds the list for you. So in other words, you don't actually provide the list via Excel or CSV. You're actually just telling them the criteria of the emails that you want to, or the prospects that you want to find, and they will basically find the list and then they'll start sending out the email. The problem is that they don't actually give you that list but that's important because what I want to do is I want to be able to take that list and I want to be able to start to make calls on that list. And so the problem is that if you send an email out, that email is going to be sitting in your outbox for your inbox, assuming that it's going through your inbox situation. And then the problem with that is that if it goes out from your inbox, then the problem is that it's sitting in your sent items, but you also need that list in your CRM tool so that you could do some follow-up yourself. And so that's kind of the problem. So in this video, kind of highlight just sort of at a high level overview what those challenges are. And I talk about some webhooks that if you had a webhooks from those tools to kind of pull the data back out, you'll be able to kind of solve this problem. But I haven't been able to find a tool that could help me to solve this problem in a sort of a systematic way. And so that's why I'm kind of building out my own tool for it. So anyway, hopefully this video gives you some kind of guidance on not only the challenge with sending out cold emails, but also like what you can potentially do to solve it. And like I said, some of the other videos will address that problem. So with that, we're going to jump over to the computer and we'll just kind of just sort of whiteboard it so at least we're level setting in terms of like what the real challenge is with this particular process. Thanks. Okay, so if you're sending out cold emails, there's a couple of challenges that you run into. The tool that I'm using right now, AnyBiz, has this problem. And so I'm using another tool called Apollo specifically to kind of solve this problem. But it also has its limitations. I just want to highlight it in this video just so you understand the difference. So let's just backtrack and make sure we're just a level set because I don't want to make any assumptions about the different tools. So if you're sending out an email to a potential person, right? So this is a person that you're interested in. And again, these are hundreds of people that you're sending out roughly the same or a slight variation in terms of customization of the email. And you're using a tool, a cold email tool, right? That contains a list of all the prospects that you're doing. There's two ways to do it. Number one is the tool itself under the covers could be using like an email provider from somebody else. So the big email providers out there like SendGrid, right? Mailgun, that's who we use internally. And there's a few others. There's a few others, but these are like the big popular ones, right? So with that, when you send the email out to this particular person, if you use these tools, now it's not 100% true because you need to do some domain validation and stuff like that. But here's the problem, right? The problem is my domain is, let's say my domain, right? My domain.com, right? And my email address is Dwayne. Okay, these guys are sending emails on my behalf. So when they do that, the first problem that exists is when the email gets to their inbox, it says Dwayne at mydomain.com by SendGrid, right? Or by Mailgun. So it normally does the reverse. It actually puts the email address and it says sending on behalf of, right? So that's kind of the problem. And I think, I don't have proof of this, but I think that is one of the reasons why you end up in spam. Okay? Don't quote me on that, but I think that's also it definitely doesn't help. So with that, what you really want to do is you want whatever the tool that you're using to actually send out from your inbox, right? So your inbox. So basically, you will have the tool connect to your inbox, and then it sends the email from your inbox. So it's truly coming from your domain name. Now you need to make sure that your domain is set up correctly and it has all the authentication tools and systems in place to make sure that every single thing is correct. Maybe I'll do a video about that just to make sure that we talk about like what you have to do to actually ensure that your domain is like properly certified so that it doesn't be blacklisted and stuff like that. There's a tool that you could use. I think it's called Easy DRMC. I think. Don't quote me on that one, but I think that's what it's called. So anyway, so that's one problem. But let's pretend that you get through this problem altogether with sending emails, right? The other problem that exists is now let's pretend for a second that this person actually replied to you, right? They replied by email. I like the weight of this. Let's drop it down a little bit. Come on. So they replied with an email. Okay? When that person replies, you need to somehow segregate it from the list, right? It needs to go into it to your CRM, right? It needs to go into your CRM. So remember, we're sending out emails here. So right now, your email technically, now some emails will connect to your CRM system, right? But for the most part, the CRMs that I'm using are not necessarily connected in that way. So it doesn't have an actual copy of this contact, right? Now in the perfect world, because again, these contacts, you don't own these contacts. This is coming from the email marketing tool. So what you need is a way that when that email goes out and it comes back in, it's already in the CRM system so that the CRM system could make the link between the email that came in and that contact, and then it could put it in the history, right? So when you pull up that particular user, right, you could look at their history and you could see, oh, an email was sent to them on this particular date and they replied on this particular date. That's kind of the problem here. So the only way that I know that you can do this right this particular point is when that email comes in to your inbox is you need some sort of trigger, something that will basically trigger that email to basically some sort of webhook that will trigger that email to then insert that data into your CRM with the log of that email. And then from there, you could also flag it as responded so that you can basically send it over to your sales guy so he could then do a call, right? So the problem that I have with the tool of AnyBiz right now is that AnyBiz does not provide a webhook. This does not exist. Okay, so that's a problem. Now, Apollo, which if you don't know what Apollo is, I'm gonna have a video specifically about Apollo and sort of like my general review about it. But Apollo is another tool that I also use for this particular purpose, and Apollo does have a webhook, so it has the ability to, whenever something happens, like a trigger, somebody opens an email or they clicked on a link, etc., for it to trigger a webhook, or if an update happens to a particular CRM. However, the webhook doesn't trigger on every request. It just triggers on a very select few, only when there is an update to the contact in the CRM. So what happens is when this person replies, you actually have to go into Apollo and then find that specific contact and then make a save, and then it will trigger a webhook, because they're not using their own, they're using Zapier, P-I-E-R. They're using Zapier to do this, and that's a problem. So that's kind of the issue that I'm running into at this particular point, and the only way that I have to solve this right now is what I'm basically proposing is whenever the email gets responded, it gets forwarded to call it a centralized inbox, and that centralized inbox will trigger a webhook. And that's the only way that I can, with some level of confidence, sort of extract the responses and put them into my CRM system. So I'm going to spend some more time talking specifically about this, and I'll show you how I'm actually trying to solve this problem. But this is the problem that I'm having right now, because there's no way for me to make that sort of connection, right? Because, and also the problem is, if you're sending from my inbox, I also have other emails that are there. Maybe I'm sending an email to, I don't know, a friend or something, right? Like, I don't want them to be in my CRM. I don't, I mean, I like my friends, but they're not that important that they need to be in a CRM, right? So that's kind of the core of the problem, and I'm going to do some more deep dive into this in another subsequent video. What I'll talk more specifically is around this webhook problem and how I'm trying to connect those two and solve it together. But hopefully you've gotten sort of a better picture on what the challenge is around sort of the cold email tools, and then, like I said, I'm going to go into a little more depth in the webhook part of things. So when we start solving these problems, hopefully it'll make sense to you. Okay, so with that, thank you.